How to celebrate sacred moments at home without spending a fortune. A narrative for faithful reflections in a world where celebrations have become competitions of extravagance, where the sacred has been buried beneath layers of commercial glitter, and where families gather around tables laden with debt rather than devotion. We find ourselves asking an ancient question that echoes through the corridors of our hearts. What does it truly mean to celebrate in the presence of the divine? The question pierces through the noise of our consumer-driven culture, like a shaft of light through stained glass, illuminating truths that our souls have always known, but our minds have forgotten. We live in an age where sacred moments are often measured not by their spiritual depth, but by their price tags, where the beauty of worship has been confused with the grandeur of spectacle. Yet somewhere deep within us, past the whispered suggestions of advertisements and the pressure of social expectations, lies an understanding as old as humanity itself. The most profound celebrations require nothing more than an open heart and a willing spirit. Consider the widow's mite, that small copper coin that rang with more significance than all the gold of the wealthy donors. In Mark 12:44, Jesus observed how she, out of her poverty, put in everything all she had to live on. Her offering was not measured in monetary value, but in the complete surrender of her heart. This ancient wisdom speaks directly to our modern dilemma, reminding us that sacred celebration is not about abundance of resources, but about abundance of faith. The art of celebrating sacred moments at home without financial burden is fundamentally the art of remembering what celebration truly means. It is the gentle practice of creating space for the holy within the ordinary walls of our dwellings, transforming our living rooms into sanctuaries and our dining tables into altars of gratitude. This transformation requires no renovation, no expensive purchases, no dramatic changes to our circumstances. It requires only a shift in perspective, an opening of spiritual eyes that have been clouded by the values of a world that has forgotten how to find joy in simplicity. In our homes, surrounded by the familiar objects of daily life, we have everything we need to create moments that touch eternity. The challenge is not in gathering resources, but in recognizing the sacred that already dwells among us. Every sunrise streaming through our windows carries the same glory that painted the first dawn of creation. Every meal shared in love echoes the miraculous multiplying of loaves and fishes. Every prayer whispered in solitude connects us to the same divine presence that comforted the psalmist in his darkest hours. The transformation begins with understanding that celebration in its purest form is an act of recognition rather than accumulation. When we celebrate a birthday, we are not merely marking the passage of time, but acknowledging the precious gift of life itself. When we observe religious holidays, we are not simply following tradition, but connecting our small stories to the grand narrative of faith that spans millennia. When we gather for meals, we are not just satisfying hunger, but participating in the ancient ritual of communion that binds hearts together across the table of shared existence. This recognition opens our eyes to the profound beauty that surrounds us in the most humble settings. The kitchen table, worn smooth by countless meals and conversations, becomes a sacred space where generations have gathered to break bread and share their hearts. The living room, with its comfortable chairs arranged in a circle, transforms into a chapel where family devotions can unfold with the same reverence found in any cathedral. The garden, whether sprawling or contained in simple pots on a windowsill, becomes a reminder of Eden, where God walked in the cool of the evening, and where life springs eternal from humble seeds. Creating sacred celebrations at home begins with the intentional cultivation of atmosphere. Not through expensive decorations, but through the careful attention to the elements that naturally speak to the soul. Light, for instance, has always been a symbol of divine presence. The simple act of lighting candles, whether expensive tapers or humble tea lights, instantly transforms any space into something special. The flickering flames remind us of the pillar of fire that guided the Israelites through the wilderness, of the burning bush that spoke to Moses, of the tongues of flame that descended at Pentecost. In their dancing shadows, we glimpse the mystery of divine presence that cannot be purchased but can only be received with gratitude. Music, too, carries the power to lift ordinary moments into the realm of the sacred. Whether it flows from a sophisticated sound system or from voices raised together in simple harmony, music has the unique ability to speak directly to the heart in ways that words alone cannot achieve. The hymns of our childhood, the choruses learned in Sunday school, the psalms set to melody, all of these carry within them the accumulated faith of generations. When we allow their melodies to fill our homes, we are not just playing music, but inviting the presence of all who have sung these songs before us into our celebration. The preparation of food becomes a form of worship when approached with the right heart. In a culture obsessed with elaborate presentations and exotic ingredients, we can easily forget that the most sacred meals in human history were often composed of the simplest elements. The Last Supper, that moment, which Christians remember with reverence above all others, consisted of bread and wine, common elements that were transformed not by their cost, but by the love with which they were shared and the presence that blessed them. When we prepare food for celebration, we can approach the task as an act of service and devotion. The kneading of bread becomes a meditation on the patience required for spiritual growth. The careful seasoning of a simple soup echoes the way life's experiences, both bitter and sweet, combine to create something nourishing and beautiful. The setting of the table, with whatever dishes and linens we possess, becomes a preparation of the heart for communion with both the divine and with those we love. The practice of hospitality, which lies at the heart of all meaningful celebration, costs nothing more than an open heart and a willing spirit. Abraham's hospitality to the 3 visitors by the oaks of Mamre required no advanced planning or expensive preparations. Yet it became one of the most significant encounters in biblical history. His simple offer of water to wash their feet, shade to rest in, and bread to sustain them was transformed by his generous spirit into a moment of divine revelation. In our own homes, we can practice this same hospitality, creating space for others not through elaborate preparations but through genuine welcome. The invitation itself becomes a gift, communicating to others that they are valued and desired. The sharing of whatever we have, however humble, becomes a sacrament of love that enriches both giver and receiver. The conversations that flow around our tables, the prayers offered together, the simple presence of community, these are the elements that transform ordinary gatherings into sacred celebrations. Memory plays a crucial role in sacred celebration, and the creation of meaningful memories requires no financial investment beyond the commitment to be present and intentional. The stories we tell, the traditions we maintain, the rituals we establish, these become the threads that weave our individual experiences into the larger tapestry of family and faith history. A birthday celebrated with homemade cake and handwritten letters becomes more precious than any expensive party when it is filled with expressions of love and affirmation. A holiday observed with simple decorations made by loving hands carries more meaning than elaborate displays. When it connects hearts to the deeper significance of the season, the establishment of family traditions need not require expensive elements to become powerful forces in shaping identity and faith. The regular reading of scripture together, the practice of sharing gratitude before meals, the creation of prayer circles during difficult times, these simple practices become anchors of stability in a chaotic world. They communicate values more effectively than any lecture, teach faith more powerfully than any formal lesson, and create bonds that endure long after material gifts are forgotten. Nature itself provides endless opportunities for sacred celebration that cost nothing beyond the willingness to step outside and pay attention. The changing seasons offer natural rhythms for reflection and worship. Spring becomes a celebration of resurrection and new life. Summer, a time of gratitude for abundance and growth. Autumn, an opportunity to reflect on harvest and preparation. Winter, a season for contemplation and hope. A walk through falling leaves becomes a meditation on the beauty of letting go. A sunset watched together becomes a moment of shared wonder at the artistry of creation. A garden tended with loving hands becomes a partnership with the divine in the ongoing work of bringing forth life from the earth. The celebration of personal milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, achievement stakes on deeper meaning when approached as opportunities for spiritual reflection rather than mere social obligations. A birthday becomes not just a marking of age, but a celebration of the unique gifts and purposes that each person brings to the world. An anniversary becomes not just a commemoration of time past, but a renewal of commitment to love and growth. An achievement becomes not just a personal triumph, but an acknowledgement of the divine grace and community support that made success possible. Children, in their natural wonder and simplicity, often understand these truths more clearly than adults. They find magic in cardboard boxes and treasure in smooth stones collected from the yard. They approach celebrations with an enthusiasm that is not diminished by the absence of expensive elements, but is actually enhanced by the opportunity to participate in creation rather than mere consumption. When we allow children to help prepare for celebrations, to contribute their own artwork and creativity, to share in the planning and preparation, we give them gifts that are far more valuable than anything money can buy. The practice of gratitude transforms every moment into a potential celebration. When we cultivate eyes that see blessing in the ordinary, hearts that recognize grace in the mundane, and voices that speak thanksgiving in all circumstances, we discover that celebration becomes not an occasional event, but a constant attitude. The morning coffee becomes a moment of gratitude for rest and renewal. The evening meal becomes a thanksgiving for provision and family. The simple act of breathing becomes an acknowledgement of the gift of life itself. Prayer, perhaps more than any other element, has the power to transform ordinary gatherings into sacred celebrations. When we begin our celebrations with prayer, we acknowledge that we are